Hello, I'm Victor and this is The Junkyard. A few months ago I was contacted by a young YouTuber by the name of Freddy MegaFanboy483 where he suggested that I review 2005's A Sound of Thunder. For a moment I was confused, as though I wasn't just forgetting something, but that my brain was actively trying to stop me from remembering it. When the levee of my subconscious broke and it all came flooding back. Now I have no choice. I have to review 2005's A Sound of Thunder, getting it out of my system before it poisons my mind. Thanks, Freddy.
The film starts with a quick bit of text. In the year 2055, a new technology was invented that could change the world or destroy it. A man named Charles Hatton used it to make money.
Wow, exactly 18 seconds between the studio logos fading and the first anti-corporate message appearing on the screen. This may be a new record.
The movie proper opens with a semi-invisible platform extending over a swamp upon which a group of armed, camouflage spacesuit-wearing people carefully walk. They are instructed by the guy in the lead not to step off the path and are informed that their guns won't fire until his does. They start to get impatient when up walks a dinosaur. The guide makes them wait until the beast gets stuck in some tar and then they open fire, killing it. Cut to the after-party for Time Safari, where Ben Kingsley, career villain, plays Bob Barker as the aforementioned Hatton. He grandly congratulates everyone for being time pioneers as he smoozes with rich investors. Meanwhile, our generic hero, apparently love child of Ben Affleck and Edward Norton, is studying data on company time. Barker is understandably enraged at the idea that someone might be using time travel for lofty purposes because, you see, he is a one-dimensional corporate bad guy. Back at the party, inevitable love interest walks unhindered into a building containing a time machine and stages a protest with the standard "You don't know what you're messing with, you'll destroy us all" spiel, and is escorted out.
The villain and I are both already finding her quite tiring.
Anyway, after we find out love interest invented time travel, she and Hero have some character development / backstory. Apparently, poaching in some kind of virus killed off all the land animals except humans, 6 years from now. But keep in mind, back when this film was made, that would have been 12 years. In any case, since the virus also somehow managed to mess up all possible DNA samples, Hero has been using his time jumps to get fresh ones. Somehow. She reiterates doom and gloom, and then we are free of her. For now.
A word on effects and progress here. See, a lot of the scenes actually do take place outside, by which I mean on a green screen. And what you end up with is a lot of characters walking around and talking while cartoon, computer-generated cars, zip by in the fore and background. It doesn't look quite natural, but at the same time I applaud it simply because it does expose you early to the level of effects, lets you get used to it so that when all the action picks up and you start seeing monsters and stuff like that, it doesn't become such a shock.
But it has led to a conflict for me. On one level, they apparently have time travel, weird weapons, and energy constructions, all of which really should be game changers for human civilization. On another level, they have slightly more fancy buildings and different model but still wheel-based cars. All conservative predictions. On yet another level, they have contemporary clothes and hair. Just a little uneven in my mind. Well, soon another couple of disgustingly rich guys are getting ready to go on a safari, and they're briefed on the #1 rule: don't change the past. Any little change could affect history, hence the suits, controlled weapons, the floating path, and the killing of dinosaurs already about to die. Though that doesn't explain how they can keep going back to the same place and moment in time over and over again without the universe exploding. Anyway, despite the precautions, Hero's gun fails at the last moment, preventing anyone else from firing. After a tense bit where they have to distract the dino, they manage to fix the gun and all is well, no harm done. Except apparently someone left a footprint on the invisible platform.
Alright, little background. This movie is based on a Ray Bradbury short story by the same name. In it, you have kind of the same setup. A time safari is about to go back. They tell people don't mess with the past, or you could affect the future, and all of that. One other detail it points out is that some guy has just been elected president. His opponent was a total militant bastard and would have driven the country into the ground. This guy is going to be a lot better. And then they go back in time. One guy panics, steps off the path they set up for him, crunches a butterfly. They come back, and the militant has been elected president. Okay, now let's see how the movie takes on the same setup.
On his way back to work the next day, Hero notices that it's getting hotter out and plants are starting to grow more. When he goes back in time, they appear to have arrived 5 minutes too late and nearly get Pompeyed. I invented a verb! Anyway, before they can figure out what went wrong, a government agency formed specially for time travel shuts them down. Hero decides to look for answers with... inevitable love interest. He elaborately fools the gun-waving crazy into letting him into her huge apartment, and when he starts asking about the time snafus, she has him look out the window. At that very moment, like she had it queued up, a huge tidal wave of time washes over the city. Suddenly, bigger plants and lots of bugs show up, and they have to jump out of her balcony to avoid the explosion.
Please, just don't ask about the explosion. It was pretty contrived.
Well, love interest explains that the changes brought on during the screwed-up trip are coming in waves, basically affecting things that evolved at earlier times first and things that evolved later last. This involves so many varied misunderstandings about physics and evolution that I'm not really qualified to try explaining them. Anyway, they convince Bob Barker and the government to let Hero go back and stop the group that screwed things up, but he is instead thrown into 1885, apparently a few minutes before Marty McFly, since he nearly gets killed by the same group of stereotypical whooping Native Americans. Hero returns to the present just in time for another time wave, which turns the buildings into a rainforest cafe.
Now a word about Barker. Hatton. They really laid it on thick with this guy. I know he was meant to be the corporate villain, but while all the other characters, they do interact, pretty rationally, pretty well, it seems natural enough. He is the corporate villain, even when it doesn't make sense, even when it's irrelevant.
Love interest says, "We have to fix this or we're all dead really soon." He agrees, but it has to be on the basis that he wants to fix the problem to avoid losing money that soon won't exist. He can't just want to not be retroactively deleted, it has to be about the money. I can't imagine the stupidest man I can think of acting this way. And then later, it turns out he left the biofilter off to save money. Oh, for shame. Thing is, it wouldn't have helped the situation in the least. I'm pretty sure the fact that the butterfly was killed was a problem, not that it came back with them. To be fair, they don't know this yet, but the audience has already guessed, I assure you, and it doesn't stop the filmmakers from making it seem like the whole situation is Hatton's fault. Anyway, they decide they need to know what specifically was brought back. Oh, and by the way, the only reason they have a chance of figuring out what was brought back was because that bastard Hatton turned off the biofilter, so they head off to find the guys they took on the safari.
This brings us to the action part of the story, where they have to cross a now unfamiliar city to reach the rich jerks, and they get picked off by monsters along the way.
First, token black guy gets killed by violent poisonous plants and a bulletproof baboonosaur. And yes, I mean a reptilian baboon with skin that reflects bullets. Please don't ask me how that was supposed to have evolved. They get to Rich Jerk 1, but he's clean, so they steal a car to get to Rich Jerk 2. There they find that, surprise, Rich Jerk 2 stepped on a butterfly.
It was in the short story, it was on the movie cover, and they foreshadowed it with all the subtlety of a sledgehammer.
Well, now they know, though they failed to give a particularly solid reason why knowing matters. They knew who changed the past and when he did it. Did they have to take a risky trip across the city to figure out exactly what he steps on? Whatever. As they head off to go back to the time machine, they're attacked by giant batadactyls who drag off foreign nerd. They manage to get back to Time Safari, but it's wrecked, so they have to take what parts they can salvage and set up shop at the university. To get there, Hero suggests that they take the partially flooded swamp of a subway. This is an amazingly stupid idea, and despite him being the zoology guy, it's the other two that have to point out that scary things live in the water. I hope this idiot gets attacked by a giant kangaroo. Hey, speak of the devil! Unfortunately, family member who shares an emotional attachment to Hero but still wasn't important enough to mention until now is the one to get snatched up by the Kandirosaurus. No, not family member who shares an emotional attachment to Hero but still wasn't important enough to mention until now!
What did this butterfly do? It was about to be buried under tons of ash. It wasn't exactly going to be part of the food chain, now was it? Yeah, chaos butterflies and kingdoms lost for want of a nail and all that. But was this one butterfly the source of all restraint for evolution?
So, Hero and love interest escape and reach the university, where they quickly set up a time machine, I guess it's a do-it-yourself job, while baboonosaurs start trying to break in. Seriously, 100 of these freaks are trying desperately to kill just 2 people. Look, you're only going to get like half a mouthful each. Spread out, you idiots! Anyway, she sends him back, telling him he'll only get around 20 seconds to save the butterfly, just as another time wave sweeps over, turning love interest into a homo mudskipperatus. Strangely, the architecture remains intact, but I'll be fair and assume that another wave will come by to take care of that. I doubt that's what the filmmakers even intended, but whatever. Anyway, he shows up in the past, gets a family member to record him being in two places at once, and stops Rich Jerk from squashing the apparently most important being in creation, then disappears. History is back on track, and Hero now has a recording of what will bring down Time Safari. He takes it to inevitable love interest where...
Hey, I just realized, they never had a romance. The filmmakers must have simply saw that they didn't have the time or the chemistry, and just went on without it. It wasn't inevitable. I'm sorry, filmmakers, I have been way too hard on you. You've given me a renewed sense of hope in American cinema.
So do you want a cup of coffee?
Okay, I admit, I didn't hate this movie. It was cliched in the extreme, the story was directionless, the premise was ridiculous, the characters were forgettable, and it was overall a complete perversion of a story from one of my favorite authors. But it was fun. The filmmakers wanted to show people surviving in a rapidly changing, roided-up ecosystem against a variety of strange yet familiar monsters from all directions, and that's what they did.
So that was a Sound of Thunder. Like I said, fun. But it will insult your intelligence if you let it. Well, this has been Victor with The Junkyard. Thanks for watching and have a good day. Sound of Thunder didn't even have a sound of thunder in it, did it? Ugh.